Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. If you are a returning friend of the podcast, I'm so happy to have you here with me. If you're listening for the first time, get excited. This is going to be a fun one. We are going to be talking today about a trip that I recently took to New Orleans, Louisiana, which is often considered one of the most haunted cities. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about my trip. I'm going to share, and also I want to address a frequent question that I get asked a lot and did get asked a lot while we were there. Why do some places feel or seem or have a reputation for being more haunted than other places? I have some answers and some thoughts about that. So buckle up. I do have a quick announcement before we dive in. I have a new event coming up on May 13th with my dear friend and colleague, Kelly Fisher, who's a fantastic medium. We're going to be doing a group demonstration of mediumship live on Zoom. You can get tickets at my website, joyfulmedium.com, in the events section. It's right there. There is a limited quantity available. So if you have never been to a demonstration of mediumship, or if you've been to 100, there will be something for everyone. Many of the attendees, I was going to say participants, but attendees will receive personal messages and details from their own loved ones in spirit world. But even those that don't will be touched by the messages and information that come through. So get tickets for that. I'm super excited about it. It's coming up May 13th, which is a Saturday. It's going to be 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, live on Zoom. You can get all the details and tickets at my website, joyfulmedium.com, in the events section. So I hope you can make it. I'm looking forward to seeing so many of you there. So I do want to talk about the trip. I'm going to share some details. I'm going to let you know where we went and what we did and all the things. Maybe not all the things, but lots of the things. And then I also want to touch on, one of the most frequently asked questions I get as a medium, but also my bestie kind of was letting some people know that I was a medium when we were traveling, and lots of people did ask me, why is this city so haunted? Do you feel this city as so haunted? So I'm going to talk all about that. First, I have to say that if you've never been to New Orleans, this trip we really focused on the French Quarter. We stayed in the French Quarter for our lodging, and then also most of our time, like 99% of our time, we were in the French Quarter proper itself. Just tootling around is the way I like to say it, seeing the places we wanted to see and then stumbling on gems that we didn't necessarily plan to see. So that was lots of fun. I have been to New Orleans before. I find it to be a really special city. I think the people are really friendly. I think there's so much history there and so much to see. There's an incredible vibe there. If you love music of any kind, especially jazz, that is by the plenty there. There's so much amazing live music to see, both in formal locations, restaurants, clubs, bars, that kind of thing. But also just on the street. There are so many talented, gifted, beautiful, amazing street performers there. So if you've never been, you're missing out. I will tell you that when we were doing research about going there, my best friend had some places that she was wanting to see. I was having some places that I was curious about that I hadn't gotten to see yet. So we did make a little bit of an itinerary or a plan. We had a couple reservations, but for the most part, we were just flying by the seat of our pants, so to speak, and having an easy time. We were only there for a few days, so we didn't get to see all the things. So this by no means is like an inclusive list of what to see. It's just what we had time to see on this trip. And I'm going to go through some of the places with you and tell you, my human experience there and then my experience there as a medium, which can be a little bit different. So that being said, I will tell you, when I was looking at hotels and when we were talking about where are we going to stay, where do we want to stay, every place that I saw claims to be haunted by a spirit person of some kind. So I do, of course, there were people from the past that created these places. And most of the places in New Orleans, the French Quarter in particular, have been many different things over the years. So just like you would imagine in any old big city, the buildings get repurposed. They used to be one thing and now there's something else. The land that they were built on was something else. Different things happen there over the years. And there are so many layers of history and change and emotion in New Orleans as a whole, and then in the individual places there. So there's lots of energy to feel and be aware of if you are sensitive to it and if you choose. But the thing to know is, just like I always talk about, I wouldn't expect the quote unquote haunted experience to be totally palpable to your five senses, meaning like it's not like ghosts are going to jump out at you or it's just not really a thing. So I will talk a little bit about some of the places that have some history that we did visit, and some other places. We had just such a great time moving through the city. I will tell you, one of the things that we wanted to see was Cemetery Number 1. I'm kind of interested in cemeteries. I have to tell you though, the spirit people, like the people who have been placed in the cemeteries, while their physical body was there, the remains of their physical body are there, their soul is not in the ground bound to that place. So you would be as likely to communicate with, a spirit person, your grandma, anyone, anywhere else, as much so as a resting place like a cemetery. However, I just really always love the stones. I love the statues there. I love to see and feel, what I can in historic cemeteries. I just find them kind of interesting. But you can feel spirit everywhere. It doesn't have to be in a cemetery. Something that was surprising, we went to the cemetery, thought we were going to be able to get in and tour and see, and we couldn't. So they've changed the rules there since the last time I was there, which was quite some time ago. Sadly, mainly because of people not respecting, a sacred space. And so they had to limit. There are lots of cameras. There are high walls that have been there for a long time, but they no longer just let people tour through. So you do have to be a part of a tour group. Those do book up in advance. We didn't think we were going to need to book a tour. And quite honestly, I didn't want to do a really planned tour of the whole city. So I also, just side note, I'm sure I'm going to offend some people with this, so apologize in advance. I'm not crazy about the horse-drawn carriages and stuff. I actually could pretty strongly feel the energy of several of those horses, hot and tired, and so I just wasn't something I chose to do. So we didn't actually get to go inside the cemetery. We did walk all the way around the borders, and you can see lots of pictures of it online. Who I was hoping to greet the resting place of was a woman named Muriel Laveau. Now, she is a famous, well-respected, adored, loved, revered voodoo priestess from that area. We didn't get to go to her resting place, but we did get to go to her store there. There is a store that they still keep in her name, and that was really cool to see. So if you're ever there, you could check it out. She just is, for me, I also like to research the people that I'm interested in. So I recommend researching her if you're interested. She just is a very well respected, highly regarded, almost to the level of like a sainthood among people that know her or follow her or from that area, certainly. So her name was Muriel Laveau, but we did get to see her shop, like I said. Of course, it's modernized so much since then, but it was just kind of fun to see. And I do want to give a little special shout out to a place called Voodoo Authentica. That is where I ended up purchasing a couple little things for myself. But all of these shops are so fun to just see and look around and see the different workings they have and what they have in these places. I actually didn't end up getting any readings while I was there. I thought I might, but then I just didn't feel drawn to anyone. Like not giving readings, but like receiving a reading myself. I didn't really feel necessarily drawn to do that in the moment, although I think it's fun and sometimes I will. I do tend to like to research my readers though. Like I want to make sure it's someone that is like legitimate and valid and all of that. I'll tell you about a few more places that we saw, just because I know a lot of you were interested in like what we saw and did and where we went. The French Quarter itself has so much history, many, many layers, like I was saying, of history and emotion. So even just walking around, you're walking on brick sidewalks most of the time, and you're able to see all of they're kind of famous for these beautiful buildings with these balconies with really ornate ironwork around them. And then often there are plants or moss hanging, and they're multi-storied. So you get to see all these kind of ironwork porches on top of each other with the beautiful flowers and greenery, and sometimes it's just the architecture alone. So that is around every corner when you're there. Just to see. They still have horse posts, lots of places on the streets, which is like an actual metal, like iron pole that's in the ground with a little horse head on top, where back in the day they used to chain is not the right way to say it, but they would, leave their horse or cart there while they would go inside. So it's kind of like a parking space for your horse, I guess, but you'd have to tether them in some way to this holding space so that they didn't just wander away. So those are still there. So there's so much that's still present, but there's so much emotion that is still present. That place has been so many iterations of things. There have been horrible atrocities there. There have been amazing evolutions there, I want to say. So a couple of the places, I'm going to go through a few places kind of quickly. And then I did have a little bit of an experience unintentionally in one place that I'm going to tell you about. So we did go to a really cool place. If you're on any of my social media at Joyful Medium, particularly my Instagram page, we posted a picture and it's all red. It looks like and actually the room itself is red. It's this really cool place called Muriel's at Jackson Square. It's a restaurant and they have a bar inside, and upstairs in this restaurant there's the whole second floor. They call it the Seance Lounge. It's all red, which I thought was kind of cool. I don't even know if everyone knows why it would be red, but when you're doing physical mediumship, in the red light is the easiest way to see, experience the energy of spirit. It sometimes appears to the eye as like a little bit of a fog when someone is doing physical mediumship, and that's more of channeling, bringing through messages of spirit in more of a direct voice way rather than loved ones in the spirit world. It's like a little bit of a different thing. But that red light is really significant. And that is the way that they do seances, is in that red light. It's not to make it spooky, although it does have a little bit of an etheric, a different feel to it. But it really is because it's called ectoplasm, which I know is such a weird word, so I don't love using it. But in the work, that is what they call it. You can search for it and you will see from quote unquote seances of old, sometimes you can see this, it looks like a fog almost. And sometimes it looks a little thicker and sometimes it looks a little thinner. I've actually done channeled experiences, trance mediumship experiences where the others present could see that fog, that mist. And that is part of the experience when you do it, is that others in the room need to actually also see with their human physical eyes this mist. We can actually have a whole topic about that a different day, but this place has this seance lounge upstairs that's all red. It's decorated really cool. So if you haven't seen that photo, you can go see a photo of me there. It was just a photo my best friend took. We're just kind of hanging out, being silly up in that lounge. So we went there twice. We went there for dinner one day. We had reservations and couldn't go upstairs because they were having a wedding party or something, and then stopped in another day and did get to go up there. There's also this special table there that you can reserve. It's kind of between the main dining area and the Seance Lounge. It's before you go up the stairs to head upstairs, and it's they call it their haunted table. We actually didn't book that table. Someone had kind of recommended against it, but then when we saw it, we almost wished that we did, because it's just tucked away in a very special place, and it's away, like I said, from the main dining room, from the hustle and bustle. So perhaps you might be able to sense or experience a little bit more of the subtle energies of the spirit world there. It is sometimes a little bit hard to feel all the things when there's a big crowd around. So that was a really fun place that I highly recommend visiting if you get the chance. Shout out to them. We had a great time there. And just so you know, all these places that I'm mentioning, I will put the links and the names in the show notes in case you want to see the place, or in case you ever make it to New Orleans and want to see some cool places. Another place that we had reservations for was called Antoine's, and they are famous for their jazz brunch, which did not disappoint. I think it was Sunday when we were there. There was this most incredible waiter. I don't know the best PC word for that right now. He has been there so many years. His name was Mr. Murphy, and actually his daughter was working beside him as his helper. And it's an incredible place. The jazz was amazing. The musicians were great. We had great food and a great time. And that place is very historic too. And when you're sitting in there, there are pictures lining all of the walls of everyone from like celebrities to diplomats to presidents, some of them even with letters. There's a lot of history there. So you could even, if you do have a reservation, I do recommend reservations for most of these places. You can walk all around and see all of the history kind of on the walls there. So that's kind of fun if you take some extra time to do that. We had a really great time there. I wouldn't necessarily say I felt it haunted, but there were some places that we didn't get to check out in that spot that I really wanted to. There's like a special wine cellar type room in the back, but there was kind of an influential, famous person of New Orleans was there. And so they had it closed off, and we actually didn't get to go in there and see it, but I wanted to. But I highly recommend that place. We had a great time. There's lots of history there. A couple other quick places I will mention. Carrousel Bar was really fun. It's inside the Hotel Monteleone. We walked around quite a bit looking for it. It's literally a carousel inside this lounge, and the seats spin around a bar very slowly, so people don't necessarily feel like they're moving. I didn't want to sit at the rotating carousel bar, but I wanted to sit, to the side of it in the lounge so you could see it, so you have a full view of it. So that's kind of a fun place to stop into as well. The cool thing about the French Quarter is when you're wandering around, sometimes just gazing off to the side, you'll see back in the buildings, the brick buildings, there's like a little walkway, and you'll see a courtyard just kind of spread out back there. And some of these courtyards have restaurants in them. So we did come across a really cool place called Sylvain that we found totally by accident, and had some great food and fun there, and got, everyone there, like I was saying, is so friendly and will give recommendations of other places to check out. They'll give you, the places they love to go, the places locals go. We didn't have time to check out all of the live music scene. We didn't even actually get to see much of it just because we were on such a short timeline, but there are tons of places that have live music, like I was saying. Jackson Square is really fun. That is where they have artists outside, and you can walk all the way around it. It's a pretty big, almost like a town center, big green grassy park. That is where the famous beignet place is. If those of you that know me, I'm gluten-free, so I can't eat those beignets. But there is somewhere else that makes them rice flour. If that's something you're looking for, you can find it there as well. The square itself on the weekends has performers and artists, and it's local artists that have their pieces, so paintings and drawings and everything in between. And it's just so wonderful to get to see all of their work, all over their creativity. We did wander a bit outside of like the main touristy area of the French Quarter to see some of the homes that were there. And it was so incredible. And just along the way. Sometimes you'll see an artist with an easel sitting just on the sidewalk and drawing, sketching all of the beautiful banyan trees that are there, all of the incredible buildings, so it is a really artsy artist community. There are tons of galleries there. So if that's your thing, you can see artists that are gallery level, that are being shown in actual art galleries, or you can see street artists, everything in between, street performers. And that is in the daytime. So that's different than the place everyone thinks of with New Orleans, which is Bourbon Street, which is where like Mardi Gras happens. And it's like the big party street. We didn't spend a whole ton of time there. I'm kind of at an age and stage in my life where I've like been there, done that a little bit. I have been to New Orleans for Mardi Gras in the past in my 20s. And even then, even then it was like maybe a little too crazy of a party for me. I don't love it so rowdy that, I don't know. I like a little bit of personal space, but it's so vibrant, even just walking down the street. You don't even have to go into any of the places if you don't want, but just walking down the street, seeing all of the performers and all of the music and all of the people and music coming out from different places. And so it is a lot of fun. I think those are all the places that I wanted to make sure I mentioned that we had a lot of fun in, and just to see around. But there are so many places that we just dipped into, because you're just walking around and you can just dip in for, an iced tea or a drink or a snack. You can dip into all these little stores and galleries. So really, I prefer to not be on kind of a tight touristy timeline. But again, I have been there before. Now, one of the funny things is I was so curious to see if I was going to have any like spirit experiences. I was available for it. I'll tell you, most of you, I think if you've been with me at all, you know this. I'm not necessarily quote unquote picking up on or aware of everyone's spirit people as I go. There were a couple places that I did become aware of spirit people. Some of it was loved ones, like one of the wonderful servers that we had, they had a partner in spirit that I became aware of. I don't really do on the spot readings like that, because here's why. In the work, we call it an ambush reading. The reason you don't do that is like, A, this person's at their job. They don't want to cry when they're on their shift in the middle of like serving all these tables, for example. You don't know if they're ready to hear from that person. You don't know if it's against their belief system. You don't know if it's okay with them. So there's a level of consent and reverence with the spirit world. And just because I'm aware of a person or aware of information about their life doesn't make it okay for me to say it. Do you know what I mean? So in that way, I was a little bit aware of like sometimes someone's spirit people or that they had lost someone, but that I usually kind of keep to myself. That happens once in a blue moon for me when I'm out. But for the most part, I'm able to focus my attention here in the physical world when I'm, being my regular self, and to the spirit world when I'm my quote unquote working self, when I'm being a medium, right? So in that way, I was aware of spirit a little bit, but we all have our own spirit people hanging out with us all the time, going where we go, being with us, saying hello, spending time with us. So that's always a thing, no matter where we are, right? So that's the level of spirit that is like spirit people that are with the people that are still here. Grandmas and grandpas and sons and daughters and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and moms and dads and all that. I did have an unusual spontaneous experience. So remember I was saying we were kind of walking a bit out of the French Quarter, a little more into a residential type area where there were just beautiful homes. And then there would be a home that, had really not been taken care of, that was just starting to be rebuilt. And then there'd be another home that was, could use some TLC. And then there'd be just a gorgeous, like palatial home that was very well curated and taken care of. So we are getting to see lots of things. On our way to that part of town, we were walking there, so it's like you're just kind of wandering, walking and knowing, okay, we're going in that direction. And then when we start to see these houses, we'll know that we're there. Well, we unintentionally passed this house that I had read about online called the LaLaurie house. That is a very famous haunted quote unquote place, but in like a torturous way. There's some terrible things that went on there. The woman of the house was rich and wealthy at that time. Her family also owned a plantation. This was like a house or school that she had. And she did some really abusive and terrible things to the people that were there with her. Now, because I know I'm energetically sensitive, I didn't want to get like bummed out or feel that sad energy or that hurtful energy. I didn't intend to see that place at all. And I actually had a friend that was like, don't go there. And I was like, yeah, we're not planning to. But we walked by it unintentionally. The only reason I even recognized where we were is because there was a gentleman doing a tour group who we kind of had stopped to look at the house. I just felt like I wanted to stop and look at it. And it doesn't look like a house. It just looks like a building. I think it's 3 stories, but it's pretty on the outside architecturally, like a lot of the buildings there, like we've just been talking about. So I kind of stopped. I started to feel some emotion kind of bubbling in me. I knew it wasn't my emotion. I knew it was just I was being aware of something in this space, in this place, on this corner of this street. I did hear the gentleman doing the tour mention LaLaurie House, and I was like, oh, okay, I know what this is. I did take a couple pictures of the outside. You can't go into any of these places, so it is a lot of looking from the outside. But we stood there for just a couple minutes. I mean, it wasn't a long time. It was just a couple minutes, just taking it in. And you guys, some of you know I'm a healer as well. So I was just sending some healing and some love to the many layers of energy that were there. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then we just kind of went on about our day. And it wasn't until the next, that night when I was sleeping, I only slept for a short time that day. I woke up after like a couple hours and then was really up on and off all night. So I did decide to sit and meditate for a while, which sometimes I will do if I can't fall back asleep. I'll just sit up and say like, all right, I'm just going to meditate for an hour, which is kind of my normal amount of time. And then I'll see if I feel tired by then and can go back to sleep. So as I'm meditating, my attention was drawn to that house again, the LaLaurie house and Madame LaLaurie. And I started to get some flashes of images in my clairvoyance, like in my mind's eye, almost like when you're remembering what you did that day. And so that was happening for me. And some of them were disturbing. And I just kind of was making a mental note. Like I said, she was pretty abusive and did some human experiment type stuff. I'm not going to go into it to be too triggering or graphic for anyone. You can look it up if you want. And so I started getting a little bit of deeper information or deeper understanding and images of what was going on there. It wasn't disturbing. It was fine. It just wasn't something I was expecting or like intentionally trying to put my awareness on. So that happened. That was kind of interesting. I did make some mental notes and then look up later or check in with someone that I knew more about that property later. And in fact, some of the things that I was seeing are known to have happened. And then some of them were like sort of, I'll just say bad things that happened like to the next degree. So that was interesting. That wasn't something I intended to happen. Like I said, also wasn't scary, didn't feel intimidating. But was an unusual thing that I kind of wasn't expecting. So we were there, like I said, just for a few days. And actually, while we were there, we were mostly focused on having a good time, right? That second time that we went to that Seance Lounge that I was mentioning, it was kind of quiet up there. And we ended up making some friends with some people who were also there, who stopped through. They were there for a film festival, and we were all chatting. And they had asked me at that time, they were asking, my friend told them I was a medium, which I don't often tell people actually when I'm out and about, just because it can be taken a lot of ways. I joke and sometimes it's the fastest way to like not have your Uber driver talk to you, but sometimes it makes them want to talk to you a whole lot more and take you on a longer route. So I don't know. I don't always share that about myself. I don't mind it being shared, but I just don't always share it in mixed company. So they were kind of asking me some questions, which was interesting. They were asking, did I feel like this place was more haunted or more energetic than other places? The answer for me is no, not necessarily in that way. So I personally, in historic cities like New Orleans, like Boston, where I'm from, like a city like New York that has a lot of history, right? A lot of different iterations, a lot of different things have happened. It's almost the sense that there are these energetic residues almost left in layers. That's the way I feel it. So a place like that, in the worst of it was the hub of the slave trade at one time, which is so terrible. So imagine the terrible emotions and acts and actions and the way it was. So that layers there, at the very saddest end of the spectrum. And then there's all the vibrant music, all the artists, all the people that lived there, all their complicated lives. And this isn't always famous people that we're aware of, right? It's just regular people living their regular lives through human history. But if a place has had a lot of history, particularly a lot of history with deep emotion, the residue, the stain, for example, is another word we can use, is left on that place over time. There's an experiment that I've seen done a few different times by some different teachers that I have had, and we play with it sometimes. There's a way of doing a reading where I've seen in person both Andy Bing and Mavis Patilla do that, God rest her soul. And really what it is the medium leaves the room, right? Goes outside. They say, someone, when I leave, one of you in this room, in this class, go up, sit in the seat at the front, sit there for a couple minutes. I've also seen it done where they like hold an object like a rose, like hold this rose if you got a flower. And then when you're done, put the rose on the chair, or leave the chair, go back to your seat, and I will come in and do a reading about whoever just sat on that space. And I've seen it done successfully several times, and we can do that. So then the medium comes in, sits in the chair, tunes into the energy, the residual energy left behind by the person that was just sitting there or the person that was just holding the object, and can do a reading, understanding information about that person. It is why residual energy of people is carried in physical items. So like some people don't like to it's a superstition. It used to be thought like bad luck to let someone else try on your jewelry because you're going to get their energy on it, or to let someone borrow your things because they're putting their energy on it. That's true. It's not necessarily a bad thing or like something you need to do something about, but items do carry energy. It doesn't make the item like quote unquote haunted. It just means that there's an energetic signature left over time. Now, if it's a place like I was saying, that has a deep history and many, many iterations, like a French Quarter, for example, or like Boston, or even here where I am in Southern California, there's a level of it. If you're sensitive, you can feel the layers of energy and emotion. It's not the same as going into like a house that's brand new, that no one's ever lived in, that's no one's ever been in. Of course, you could, if you're sensitive enough, you could tune into the energy of that land, because most likely someone inhabited that land before that house was built there. But that, the house itself, since no one's lived there, it was just built, there's not a ton of residual energy that's behind in that place necessarily. So that is why places that are like historic feel different energetically, maybe a little bit aged energetically. They're just layers of emotion, energy, the things that happen, the story of people's lives that are almost like etched into the energetic fabric of that place. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I would love it if you in the comments would, if you can find comments, let me know if you've ever had this experience. But if a place is old and has had a lot of energy, a lot of people through there, a lot of, it's sometimes people feel this in hospitals too, because there's been a lot of emotion, a lot of energy, a lot of people through. So do I feel it differently in a place like New Orleans? Yes, in that the energy's so layered and that there's so much history and so much emotional history of all the people that have passed through and inhabited and spent time in, and sometimes even spilled blood or tears in those places. So yes, that all leaves residual layers of energy, almost like if you paint the same wall over and over for every person that's lived there or been there. All that other paint is still there. It's not necessarily what you see or feel on top, but it's under there. So that is how that works for me. The other thing is, let me just speak from my experience. It's not my experience for places to be quote unquote haunted in the way that media talks about it. a lot of times the spirits or the spirit people that we feel in places are our own loved ones. So everyone's loved ones on the spirit world come and visit them and spend time with them, even ancestral loved ones that you may not have known, right? Or ancestors. We talked about this in the episode with Sharon, the episode about, the ancestral realms. If it's, for example, like I'm a medium, all of my medium ancestors, so those that have come before me in this work, they might have an interest in what I'm doing. They might want to check on me or spend time with me or help me or inspire me or support me in some way. Same for all mediums. Same if you're a plumber. There might be generations of plumbers past that are in spirit now that are on your team that will come and help you and spend time with you. So that's one layer of the energy that's happening. And along with that, if something is like an architectural building, for example, and there was an architect that designed that place or someone that lived in that home and loved it, they can still visit that place. It doesn't mean they're stuck there in the way that we think of it or like bound to that place, haunting it. Ooh, scary, can't leave. It's not like that. But of course, they have the free will and the ability to continue to visit places of interest to them. There might be a place that you love or that you spend a lot of time in or that you have many memories or cared for or have an interest in that one day, 100 years from now, when you're in the spirit world, that you might want to come back and visit. And certainly you can. And maybe people here will think it is haunted by you. But in fact, you can come and go as you please. So for me, I don't feel like places are haunted in a scary way, although I do believe that spirits of any generation that have an interest in that place can continue to visit it, spend time there, be there whenever they want. So, of course, in a place that has rich, deep history and emotion like New Orleans, there are a lot of spirit people, I'm sure, that still have interest in what is going on with that place. So why wouldn't they be there visiting? But I didn't have an experience as far as like we see in the movies of like haunted ghost hotel kind of a thing. Not like that. I am going to do an episode for you guys, I think very soon about this is going to sound maybe a little wacky, but maybe not to some of you, about a spirit person that spends time in my home that is not one of my relatives, that I have communicated with several times. The way I like to do it is communicate with them mediumistically, receive information. There's in that episode, I'll tell you exactly how I do it. But I like to get bits of information that I can actually validate some of it, either like historical facts or data that I can look and validate to know if I'm on the right track with it, because it's a little bit different than mediumship where I'm giving a reading and, it's someone's mom and they're sitting in the room and I can say, oh, your mom was like this. Her personality is like this. She has the memory of going on this cruise here, like concrete data that then the person who's my client in the room or on the Zoom room can say, yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. Yes, I understand that. That's the validation. Now, if I'm working with, like when I was receiving data or information, communication about that LaLaurie house, not LaLaurie, the LaLaurie house, not the Laveau house. Marie Laveau is the voodoo priestess. Madame LaLaurie is the one where the scary stuff happened. So when I'm receiving information like that, I do set the intention that some of the information will be able to be validated through research because that is just who I am. I like some practical validation. So that was cool that the information that I did get in that little meditation, I was able to validate. And it was, in that case, some torturous things. Now, I didn't feel tortured by it. I just was aware of torturous and terrible things that happened in this place in a way that I hadn't been aware of. And then I could look online and the data was there and information was there and certain things were in the way that I understood them. And so that validates that, okay, what I was receiving was real, was correct, not made up by my mind, right? So that is where the validation's important. Now, there are people who have interest, like I was saying, in historic places, in hotels. It's not always because they died there, although it could be. Sometimes it is. It doesn't mean like that's the whole reason they were interested in the place. If they died there, probably they lived there or they had some other reason to be there. There's a place here in San Diego that I actually haven't spent a lot of time at that was one of the first courthouses, and they actually did a form of execution there. And so, yes, those people, there are certain people that died there that might be revisiting it, but also they perhaps were imprisoned there. They went to trial there. There are a lot of other elements of the emotion that are there. So it's not always all about the death, to be honest. And a lot of times with spirit communication, especially with a spirit person who's not like related to you or in your life, a person who, the way I say it's not quite right, but the person who goes to the place. So if it's a person, I'm going to use a hotel, for example. I think it's the easiest. Like if someone is in a hotel that is known to be haunted and they say there's a lot of activity in the hotel we were at, it was a lot of activity supposed to be on the 6th floor. So yeah, that can be true. But it doesn't necessarily have to mean it's scary. And it doesn't have to necessarily mean it's that person died there or wants to talk about their death. Sometimes they want to talk about or share about or communicate about like, hey, I built this place or I designed this place or I used to live on this floor or this is where my business was or these are the emotions I have about what has happened here since or how this place has changed or I have some feelings about the person I was in life when I did live here 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and now I understand differently. So there can be a lot of reasons that a spirit person is there to say hello. And sometimes if you're mediumistic, they're saying hello just because they can, just because they're like, I feel like they can recognize those of us that have sensitivity to communicate. And they're like, oh, she can feel us or she'll be able to see or sense or be aware of us, like say hi to her kind of a thing. So don't take it as a bad thing. You can also say no thank you if you are not interested in being communicated with. So just know there's not, it doesn't like have to be scary. Sometimes it's layers of human emotion in that place. Like if it's a place that people go to tour that is said to be haunted and a lot of people are scared to go, like when they get there, they're scared because of the story, because of the it's really sensationalism is what I want to say. And so they're coming in with that jittery, scared, oh, what's going to happen here emotion. It's usually the human emotion of humans from this side. But like I was saying, emotion can color, stain, be embedded in, remain in, layer in a place. It is what happens. So it is one of the reasons that a lot of people will quote unquote clear their jewelry. It's you're removing energy that doesn't belong to you. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's harmful. It's just not yours, and that's okay. So let me know if you have ever had an experience in a place, if you have ever felt the emotion, like the residual energy or emotion in a place. There's, like I was saying, hospitals are often a place where sensitives feel bogged down or emotionally overwhelmed. I don't talk about this much, but I was hospitalized several years ago, a couple times in a serious way. And I didn't really share it with people. Only a couple people knew. Actually, one friend knew and told a couple other very close friends. And someone had messaged me and said, are you okay in there? Like, are you feeling overwhelmed by the sadness in that hospital? I actually wasn't, because like I said, I tend to more intentionally focus my energy and awareness and just I've learned how to not let emotion into my space that doesn't belong to me, that I don't want in my space most of the time. But so when I read that, it was a text that came in. And when I read it, I was kind of like, well, I wasn't, but now thanks, I am. So then I did start to feel that sadness, the grief in that place, all of the medical challenges, all of the that spectrum of emotions, really the hard emotions. I did feel, oh, this place is so steeped and marinated in this. And I started to feel my own emotion start to match that, right? I try to be so careful with language, because it's not like that emotion can do anything to you if you don't allow it. And so I started to remember my training, my previous training in healing and energy work. And I remembered, oh, I get to intentionally choose what emotion, what I feel in my space, my personal space bubble, my auric field. If you've just done the free live workshop with me, you know what your auric field is now. But it's the emanation of your soul and the energy around you, which creates your personal space bubble, which we sometimes call an auric field. So in that moment, as the knowledge of my training came up, I was like, okay, well, yes, there's a lot of loss that happens in this hospital. Yes, there's a lot of sadness. Yes, there can be a lot of hard emotions here, but there are also so many healers in this building. There's also so much love here. This staff from, top to bottom show up here because they care, because they want to heal, they want to help, they want to do good. And so if I can feel the sadness of those who are in loss, I can feel the love of those who are here to help and support and heal and who are doing their very best and giving their heart, sometimes literally in a hospital. And I shifted my awareness to tune into that emotion. And I did. And then I started to really feel the overwhelm of love in that hospital. I was having a bit of a hard time, quite frankly. I was there alone, and I wasn't really being visited like I should have been by the people who should have been doing it. So no hard feelings now, but it was kind of easy for me to slip into that quicksand of difficult emotion or of overwhelming sadness. But because of the training I have, we all have the ability to focus our attention, focus our awareness, focus our subtle sensing wherever we want. So if you are in a place, if you're ever in a place and you don't like the emotion there, you feel like, oh, this is a negative emotion here, or, oh, there was just an argument here, or, oh, this is, I get it like in courthouses too. Oh, there's a lot of like sticky, kind of the more challenging spectrum of emotions here. Think about the other side of the coin. Think about the people that are loving that place, or the person that built that place lovingly, or the people that are there to help and support, the people that are there to have the best and highest outcome, the do-gooders, right? The white hats, if you will. I've just been watching, I've just been restreaming Olivia Pope, so I know about the white hat now. So you can refocus onto that energy no matter where you are, no matter how tough the place is where you're at, or how tough the emotions are, the residual emotion in that place. You can refocus on a different, more loving, more uplifting, sustaining, or even solid, like grounding type energy. So don't feel like you have to be overwhelmed with the emotion of places if you don't want to be. You can intentionally tune into it. You can intentionally tune out of it. So that is, in a nutshell, my trip to New Orleans. I'll tell you what I got the most out of it, besides that I just love the French Quarter and the music and the vibrancy and the wonderful people there. I really got some time to reconnect with my best friend. We talk almost every day for the last 20 something years, but it's different to be somewhere in person with someone. We didn't have our kiddos with us, any of us. My kids are grown now. She still has some grown and some little, but we got to be just the two of us just for a few days. And it was just such a nice time to be together. There was so much laughter. We just had so much fun. We talk so easily all the time, just about nothing really. It's not even always about something. She, in so many ways, is a big sister to me in this life. And some of it was her, in big sister style, kind of tell me about myself, which was much needed and much appreciated. So that time for me was just a little bit of a refocusing energetically for myself and starting to remember how much I like to have experiences. I did just share a little bit about some health challenges. And so in these last 3 years, things have been a little different for me. I've been a little more cautious, a little more protective. I haven't quite yet. I mean, obviously I just traveled, but before that, I hadn't really necessarily fully immersed myself full time into the world, kind of dip my toe and pull it back, dip my toe and pull it back. And I really am ready to remember how much I love having experiences and how much I love seeing, new places. And whether it's like a big trip like that or it's just local, going to little local gem restaurants or family owned places or parks, or I forget. And I can get so focused on work and I can get so comfortable just being, quite honestly, by myself, being alone and being in my own energy and not having to feel everyone else's energy and not having to, a lot of times we talk about how we put on a different face out in the world. So it was a great reminder for me energetically about remembering fun and amusement and remembering how much I love having colorful experiences of all kinds. So a little bit of a kick in the pants for me personally on that. I do spend so much time with spirit that I wasn't necessarily desperate for a spiritual experience, although I did set the intention that I'd like to receive some spiritual growth of some kind. And I think that's what it was for me, was more about, they did let me know, obviously, because I was aware of some people's loved ones. I was aware of, I did have to give like explanations of mediumship when my friend would tell people what I did. They, of course, people have questions. So, I am always in the work a little bit. But I didn't necessarily feel the haunting in the way that I think movies promise us. But you really can feel the layers of emotion, residual emotion, the history, right? There's more to history than just the story of what happened, just the facts of what happened. There are all of the emotions and all of the lives of the people involved and all of the changes that any choice, the ripple effect, right? That butterfly effect of any choice, any action. And you really can feel it steeped into places that have deep history, particularly deep emotional history. So I invite you to just think about places that you've been, think about places that maybe you want to go. And even in your own hometown, wherever you are, wherever you live in any country, you can feel the energy of the layers of time, right? The many emotions that have been in that space, the many hands that have touched that construction site, for example, what the land was before. And you can even do it with wherever you are, not necessarily just the buildings, but the land, because as we know, there were indigenous people in these lands before any of us. We are many generations forward from those people who were indigenously on any piece of land at any time. And you can feel and sense different emotions around that. If you're sensitive enough, it's a practice. It's always going to be subtle. Always is a strong word, almost always going to be very subtle. But really there's energy like that available all the time. And like I said, we've all got our loved ones around us. We've got ancestors of every kind, both blood ancestors and ancestors in the different works and things that we explore and experience. So I hope that you have enjoyed my little chat about the French Quarter in New Orleans, Louisiana. I love the place. I love the people. There's a vibrancy there. It's an incredibly complicated stew of emotions over the history of time in that place, though. So for me, that is the haunting that I feel in that place. It is the blood and tears and sweat that was spilled there over all the generations. It is all of the shifts in history. It is all of the impassioned, powerful, painful emotion in that place. That is the haunting for me. And it is not corralled to one location or one space or one building. It is marinated through the fabric of the energy of that place. So you can, if you're sensitive or if you allow yourself to be sensitive, you can sense that depth. It's almost like a thickness in the emotional residual energy in that place. And like I said, it's common to any place that's similar in the amount of emotion, that's been there over the years. So let me know your thoughts on this. I don't know if you guys are gonna, just what's true for me. I don't know how you guys are gonna feel about what I've said, but that really is the most honest and true answer and the most clear way that I can explain what happens in the haunting of places. So again, let me know your thoughts. Also, if you are enjoying this podcast, whether you are new or whether you are one of the lovies that have been with me since the beginning, if you could like, subscribe, or share an episode that you enjoy with a friend who you think it might resonate with, or it might be of interest to them, I would really appreciate it, because as you know, I set an intention to use this podcast as a community and for a safe space for sharing information. So that would mean a lot to me. And I would also love it if you subscribe. That helps you because you never miss an episode, and it helps me because you never miss an episode. So lots of love, big hugs. Again, quick reminder, group mediumship event coming up on May 13th. It is inspired by Mother's Day, but you don't have to be a mom to come. Although it would be a lovely gift for a mom or a representative of the divine feminine in the world to come with you. So it's on Zoom. It is May 13th. You can get all the details and tickets on my website, joyfulmedium.com, under the events section. Right at the top of the page, there's a list of, like, most of us know how to use websites now, right? There's the tabs at the top. It's the one that says events. Click on it and it will give you all the information, all the detail, the date, the time. And then I send out the Zoom link personally to everyone before the event. It is going to be so amazing. Kelly and I haven't gotten to work together in a while, but pre-COVID, we worked together a lot. We actually share an office space together, which I am about to head to right now for some readings. I hope you guys will be there. There is just something special in the energy of group readings that is really beautiful. Even if you don't get a personal message, many people in attendance will get communication from specific loved ones of theirs in the spirit world with details and messages of love. If you are not someone who does get a message, because of course we don't have time to guarantee messages for everybody, although many people will get a message, your heart will still be touched in some way. There still will be, Spirit's amazing. There still will be things that resonate with you. There still will be similarities to a story you understand, and you will feel the spirit tingles and know that your loved one is also beside you saying hello. So Spirit's pretty incredible. I hope you will join us for this very special event. Seats are limited. Even though it's online, we have to limit it to a certain number of people so that we can work to the best of our ability with the technology that we've got. So it's going to be a really, really special event for Spirit and for all of us that are there. Let me know your thoughts about the energy of places. If you know or have an understanding or resonates with you what I'm talking about this residual energy layered over time by emotion in places. It's a real thing. It really is pretty interesting when you dive into it. That is what I've got to say about the energy of hauntings and of places and of New Orleans. And lots of love to all of the residents of New Orleans. I definitely will be back. Big hugs. Bye for now from inside the Spirit Speakeasy.